And also we know that we're going into the 10 Malaysian plan. So in a way the budget perhaps is a sign or a preamble to what we'll see in the 10 Malaysian plan. Last year's budget we had a significant budget deficit of 7.6%. To what extent should we continue with this budget deficit? These are some of the issues that we would like your views on. Perhaps we can start with YB Charles Santiago. What do you think? What do you think of the state of the economy in the country, and what do you think are the key challenges the budget should address?
I think looking at next year, I think it's definitely going to be a very challenging year for Malaysia. Partly one, because we have a very uncertain global environment. Although there's a lot of talk about green shoots, but yet there are also lots of talk about high rates of unemployment in the US, Europe, and also problems in China as well. So going forward, Malaysia has to look into the issues of competitiveness. That's one. Number two, the issue of inequality in Malaysia. And number three, the issues surrounding high levels of household debt, which is actually quite staggering though. From the year 2000 to now, it has actually increased quite precipitously. I think these are issues that are going to be issues that the Prime Minister has to take into consideration. Besides the fact that he has to tell Malaysians in 2010 that this one Malaysia is working and people are happy in preparing for his elections in 2011.
So to address these challenges you mentioned just now, what do you think are some of the key points he may be thinking of, or what should be done?
I think before we go into the specifics of what has to be done, I think the numbers in the last 3 months or last 6-7 months that have come out is actually quite staggering, if not alarming though. One, foreign direct investments in the first 7 months of this year has dropped to something like 53%. Local investments in the Malaysian economy by local investors has dropped by 44.4%, I think. Exports in the first 6 months has dropped for about 23.3%, and in the month of August itself it's dropped by 19%. And I think all the different institutions have argued or suggested that Malaysia will record a negative growth for this year between 3 and 4%. Now, what is alarming is this though. This is a shocker when I read the recent UNDP report that came out 2 weeks ago that said that Botswana's income per capita is higher than Malaysia's.
Wow.
So they have hit something like $13,600 whereas Malaysia is at $13,500 US dollars. Now, why is this staggering? Because in 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, historically, in the 60s and 70s, Malaysia was competing with, or should have been competing with Korea, the likes of Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, right? And then in the 80s and 90s, we are competing with Vietnam, Cambodia, right? And now a country, Botswana, which was far lower in the rung, is now outflanked Malaysia already though. So we are moving behind when everybody else is caught up and moving in front though. Yeah. So really,
some serious issues.
Serious issues here that has to be dealt with.
Yeah. Maybe we can hear from YB Tony Pua. What do you think are the main challenges that the Malaysian economy currently faces?
Actually, from the macro perspective, Malaysia has become an economy that is very reliant on the government. From studies by international investment banks like Merrill Lynch, Malaysia's gross domestic product is about a quarter of it is reliant on government and government-related expenditure. Whereas comparable countries like Taiwan, Thailand, Singapore has it at between 10 to 15%. So this is the structural issue where the government is taking a bigger and bigger role in the economy, but at the same time you do not see the economy actually growing much beyond what it was. So what an actual fact is happening is the shrinking of the private sector.
Right.
So your manufacturing industry, your SMEs are shrinking. And if you look at the manufacturing, we are a manufacturing country. We consider ourselves as a manufacturing country, a manufacturing hub of the world. But if you look at the growth rates for Malaysia in the manufacturing sector over the past few years, it's abysmal. It is less than 3-4%, and if I'm not wrong, last year was in the region of 1.5%. Right. And that to me is a child's version of alarm bell. You know, so this is a huge productive sector, yeah. Okay, and it is no longer productive. SMEs are suffering. And if you look at the budgets over the past few years, the past 5 years, the word manufacturing is hardly mentioned in the budget. So it's a sector that has been completely ignored, despite the fact that it forms probably about 30% of our economy. And that is reflected in the private investment numbers. Private investment means non-government investment. It has declined from in the mid-90s in the region of 25% to just about 10% today. And private investment in Malaysia's context, the definition includes GLCs. So take away GLCs, which probably forms about close to half of that, your actual private investments is extremely low. And that is very worrying. We need to beef it up again, and it won't happen overnight. You need to put all the structures back in place.
So our productive sectors are really under a lot of stress. Zul, what are your feelings about the current economic situation?
Well, to continue further what my colleagues have just mentioned, I think the situation is still grim, and we are not really out of the wood, despite what the media talks about, of a recovery. But the global scenario and the global prediction is not going to be something quick by way of recovery. And they're not talking about a double dip or a W-shaped recovery, and that is worrisome to say of the least. And we are here, talking about, trying to hype that, we are already here to, to be on the recovery path. But you look at the numbers. You look at the numbers that are, the numbers are not in tandem. The macroeconomic numbers are not in tandem. You see that job numbers remain unimpressive. With retrenchment outpacing job creation. Bank loans and private investment remain lethargic. Consumer prices indices continue to slide. So all these are, to say of the least, worrying. And there's no particular, signs of yet to inject that, injected about 60 billion. Something that the finance minister or the prime minister said that they have spent, yet we don't see it. Okay, you just cannot account for it, and there's no kind of trickling or multiplying effect in that direction. So all in all, this budget is going to be really one that requires serious, strategic approach of, should I say, resuscitating the economy, particularly when you have private investment, the C plus, G plus, I, X minus M, the I factor, which is the private investment, is really, shrinking. That's right. And that crunch, that kind of is serious is a bad prognosis for this country. And there's no, I don't see any tangible working measures taken by the government, and they keep harping. And what is worse now, despite we are a manufacturing country as such, but there is over-reliance on back to what I call a traditional economy, an economy that relies on our commodity, on essentially oil. And oil represents about 60% of our revenue, if not more, right? Or 45% of our revenue. So that's my brother.
So on one hand we are saying, normally the economy is doing bad, we have this kind of physical stimulus packages. On the other hand, what as Tony pointed out, it just means that the government is actually injecting money into the thing, bigger deficits, no real growth in the productive sectors of the economy, more reliance on the government to spend, which actually does not, that means we're actually running a deficit, but running a deficit not as a short term, it becomes a long term thing. And that will actually subsequently have impact on inflation and other fundamentals of the country.
The increasing role of the government didn't happen overnight. It has been increasing over the past decade, and increasingly so as the oil revenues kept coming in over the past couple of years. And as the manufacturing sector actually declines, Malaysia spend all their oil revenues, and actually they are faced with a conundrum now. They actually need to increase their spending because the economy is not great yet. Natural sense, economy are good, spend more money, but they have a problem. They have spent all their money.
So they're spending our natural wealth.
Yeah, no, they have actually spent new wealth. They have actually spent all their money. So they actually have no new money for the coming budget.